Hey, what is up, you guys? It's Andy and Kat. And after what is it? Like a 60-day hiatus or a couple of months hiatus, we're still alive. Great news. We're still thriving. I think it looks like you're thriving.
Yeah, yeah, things are good. Yeah. Yeah, things have been busy, but yeah, things are good.
I
So,
think that's it, right? Like things have been incredibly busy. I know you, Andy, were involved in this huge go live for your client. We have been taking on some new clients on our end and trying to get them onboarded and finish up projects. And so we have the rare opportunity to chat.
yeah,
This
it's
is
been good. Yeah,
this
this
is
is good.
fantastic.
Yes.
Right. So, so something that I've been thinking about lately, is, I'll share with you why in a few moments, but I've been thinking about as people in the information technology field and the accounting field in a very technical field, right? Like whatever your technical field may be, and it might not even be IT or accounting. It might be biomedical technology or engineering or anything. But I find that lately we tend to hide behind labels. And what I mean by that is that it's really easy for us to forget that we're actually working, at the end of the day, we're actually working with humans. It doesn't much matter what the field of expertise is or like the message that we are trying to, the advice that we're trying to give. Whether or not you're giving advice or whether or not you're putting in a system or whether or not you are just consulting in general or being that trusted advisor, the recipient of this information or the entity that will benefit from your expertise is going to be ultimately a human. I don't care if you're configuring, invoice price variance in Oracle, the people who benefit from what you are doing is a human. And especially like we in IT, designing mobile applications or like all these wonderful things or setting up databases or configuring Oracle ERP, we tend to forget that and we tend to think that the technology is everything. And as long as as long as you know so much in the technology, you can convey it, blah, blah, blah. But that's not the point. Like if you're thinking that, you have completely missed the boat of IT. You've been completely missed the boat of any sort of technical expertise that you are experienced in. Because at the end of the day, you are talking to a human. What your advice is, your expertise is benefiting human. That's how you add value. Would you agree?
100%. 100%. Yeah, I think because it's easier, I think what happens is when we try to communicate, let's say to another person, it's actually we have to get to a almost an intimate level.
Mm-hmm.
And when I mean, and it's easier often for people to start to talk about the inanimate things. So
Yes.
accounting, IT, those sorts of things. And I'll always talk about even global warming. And I'll say one of the biggest problems with global warming was the fact that Greenpeace or whoever came up with like whoever sold it said that global warming was bad for the earth. Global warming isn't bad for the earth. Global warming is bad for humans.
Yeah.
That's what it's who it's bad for. The earth will be here. The earth has survived massive heat and massive cold. It's not good for humans. And I think that when you say it's bad for the earth, people then have to sell this idea that we have to worry about something else. And I think that's what ends up happening is because it's an easy thing to kind of talk about as opposed to trying to debate and go, this is what we're doing for humans. And I think technology is really the same. When we start to talk about technology, it's easier to talk about the technology than it is to talk about the humans.
100%. Yeah. Oh, I used your phrase. I've been using your phrase a
100%.
lot. 100%. 110%. Yeah, like I think you've hit it really right on the mark. And I love how you bring up that example of global warming. It's a very, don't get me wrong, it's a very controversial topic. And even people who are listening to this right now may have differing opinions. What are you talking about? What do you mean it's bad? It's not good for the earth or what not bad for the earth? What do you mean we have to protect our earth? But yeah, like Absolutely, we have to protect our earth. That's the message that we're not trying to detract from that message. We're not saying that global warming is a hoax. It absolutely, it is what it is, right? But the effect of it, you have to, and if you're thinking that, you're actually falling into the trap of technology, like inanimate thing versus impact on humans, right? Because you have to, like, especially in the, taking the global warming example, when you think of the global warming example, you have to think one level deeper and say, okay, yes, the impact is on the earth, but why? Like, what is it about it that is so terribly wrong that we have to, do something about it? And it is the impact on our future generations, is it not?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of arrogance and it comes from the perspective of that I have the right answer. And if I have the right answer, it's really, let's say if you and I have a conversation, if I think I have the right answer, it's really, really, really hard for me to tell you, Kat, I have the right answer for you, right? Because most people are going to go, well, clearly it's going to be really difficult for me to sell that. So what I can do, though, is I can point to the technology, whatever that technology is, or the inanimate item, because I can argue that, and now it can become a battle of education, intelligence,
Right.
information. Right now, we can battle that, as opposed to really having to say, Kat, this is what I think is in the best interest of you or our business, or what we think will be best for everybody, or whatever the situation is. Because now we have to get to a personal level, which I need to now see you as a person, get your feelings, have empathy towards you, and also expose some level of myself and open myself up to some sort of so.
Absolutely. You know what, you guys, that is the hard part. If you are going into consulting, I don't even care if you're going into consulting. Like, consulting is just an employment arrangement, right? It's on paper, whatever. It's how you get paid. Who cares? What I'm talking about is if you are actually working with people, or if you even have a job, you're working in an organization, you're going to be experiencing this, right? And what Andy is saying is absolutely so fundamental to leveling up in your career, building a great life, right? And here's what I mean by that. So if you're in a skilled area of expertise, you're going to be hired for your skills, right? So the immediate is that, oh yes, I've got all of this information that I know is great for you, whatever. So I'm going to just convey it, and you need to get on board with it, right? But the thing is that they don't care because they're also thinking the same thing, right? They're also thinking, well, I have a bunch of expertise that I know is good, and I'm going to just spew it out at you, and you need to get on board. And so the missing link, you guys, is the bridge between how it impacts you as a human, how it impacts you as, like, in your life, right?
Exactly.
That is the hard part, my friends. And that is not very many people can do that. And if you can master that, you're gonna level up like crazy. Like, there's no field that you cannot succeed in if you master this.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And if you think of every single, like, think of any sort of industry, and I'll use the word industry generally. Let's say medicine. They call it a bedside manner, right? Is what they call with doctors. And if you've ever I apologize to the doctors out there, but there are some doctors who actually are great at it, and some that aren't. And some of it comes from fatigue. When you are just dealing with problems all day long, the easiest thing, again, is to revert back to the technology.
Yeah.
And then just speak in a technical manner. Religion is the same, right? Priests, rabbis, ministers, the same thing. The ones that build a connection are building a connection with the person. The person who doesn't falls back to the technology, which is whatever religion or faith that they practice, and then they take that, and then they argue basically from a level of intelligence, as opposed to trying to connect with their audience, which is just their congregation. And I mean, we could talk about this with all kinds of industries. And I think the ones that you said like make an impact are the ones that, and we always say get down to a level of the user, which implies that the user is lower
Is
than the
lower. It's
person.
not right. No,
Yeah,
it's
it's
getting
not.
into the mental conversation that they're having in their head.
That's right. Exactly. That's exactly right. And I think the technology is such an easy thing to fall. And when we use the word technology, we're really referring to information, or again, the non-human part of the piece. And I think that it's so easy to do it because it's something that often we take pride in. Right? We take pride in the
Oh,
knowledge we have.
100%.
You
For
know,
sure. I
yeah,
know all
yeah,
of this. I paid X hundreds of thousands of dollars for my education. So
that's right.
that's what I have
Exactly.
to offer and my experience.
Right. That's right. Yes, yes, exactly. And I think that you are bang on when you say the people who can make that leap and build that bridge between the information, especially once you start to get to complex information, to be able to speak to it in a manner and get people to absorb that it's critical. It's the people who are able to do it are phenomenal successes.
Absolutely. It's funny that so there is, like if you're in a technical area of like a technical profession, you have a different perspective on sales, right? You tend to perhaps, hide behind, this is what I'm saying, like people hide behind their labels or like, oh, I'm an engineer, therefore I think this way. Well, I mean, I think that you're buying your own BS, because at the end of the day, you're human and you're going to be impacted as a human being. And therefore, like, you're just lazy to think about how your message can impact other people, right? So there's that. Anyways, different story. But we in technical professions tend to shy away from sales for that very reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
The funny thing is that if you want to, I mean, even in sales, like if you've ever taken any sort of sales education or courses or read any sales book, the first thing that they will teach you is to get into the mental conversation of I say audience, right? Because I do a lot of online content, so it's always audience, right? But it could be whatever, customers, clients. It could be the business that you support in your organization. As you may or may not be an intrapreneur, but like a support person within your organization. Whoever you're serving is still going to be your quote unquote customer. And whatever you're doing, you're going to be performing some sort of service, right? And with that service, you guys, there is an element of sales in it. And I know sales is a scary word, but that's exactly what we're talking about. Like getting into the mental conversation, understanding where that person is, right? And it's not necessarily down here as an end user, or like getting down to the level of the lowest common denominator of blah, right?
Mm-hmm.
They may not be technical, right? They may be very non-technical. In fact, I know I just said the same thing in opposite ways. But I mean, I work with a lot of people who work on utilities, and they're in the field every day. And so many of them, they have just started to use computers. And in this day and age, it's like, wow, right? And so like often when I work with my development team, they just cannot fathom the level of like the difference in the worlds that they have, like versus your IT team, right? And so I am essentially the bridge that goes there. But the number one thing you have to do, the first thing you have to do, you guys, is you have to understand who you're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's right. Exactly. Yes, 100%. And I think that it's interesting about even the concept of bringing it down. Remember hearing a story many years ago about Nordstrom's, and if you ever been to Nordstrom stores, I think it started off as a shoe store and then developed into a department store. But yeah, if you ever gone to Nordstrom's, it's like the very first time I remember walking into there with my wife, it was like Christmas morning in the shoe department, where there's probably 100 women going crazy, right? Like, crazy. But it was like I had never seen anything like that before. And what I heard later was that almost all the executives at Nordstrom had started off in the shoe department. And the nature of even the shoe department, if you would ever watch somebody selling shoes, what do? Like they go and get the shoes, and then what do? They come back and they put it on your feet, right? They're actually at the lowest place on your body when they're trying to serve you,
literally
right?
The lowest
Literally
place.
as low as you can go, right?
Assuming you're standing up.
That's right. Yes, that's right. Yeah. And so, and so it's interesting when I thought about that, because that analogy has always stuck with me of the idea of actually getting on your knees and actually serving the client, right? And actually putting their shoes on is an interesting concept, which,
yeah.
And so for me, I think that's really even the idea about trying to sell ideas to the client, and education is really just that too, is around trying to sell an idea, right? It's trying to get the person who is being trained on why this concept or what you're trying to deliver to them is important, and what the benefit is. Because let's face it, people can say, well, that's the tool, they're going to have to use it. Well, they don't really have to. They can screw it up pretty good if they're really not interested.
Absolutely.
So it's always in our best interest to present that. And if you think of the concept of trying to get lower on somebody versus getting down to their level, I like, for me, that image has always stuck with me.
When you were just going through that analogy, it made me think of it's not just about sales, you guys. Like, what we've been telling you we're sharing in this message is that yes, sales is a part of what you do. And I know you guys are all shuddering when I hear the word sales. It's like, I don't want to do sales. I'm not good at sales. I'm not good at talking to people. You're missing the boat, right? It's getting in, as I mentioned, getting into the mental conversation, and just like imagining that you are in that person's shoes. Not to, bring to bring your example one step further, right?
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
And so if we extrapolate that one more level, it's a level of servant leadership, right? Like, whatever you are, whatever position you're in, there is an element of leadership that you need to take on, right? You don't necessarily have to have the job title or, the position in your company or anything, but just being a part of society gives you the opportunity to serve, and it gives you the opportunity to lead. And if you're going to lead people, you really got to get into their minds and identify, like, empathize with what they are thinking.
Yes, that's right. Yes. And I think that there's so many opportunities with our clients where, I mean, we think of a lot of people. I think one of the problems with sales is that people have an image of like cold sales, where you're just calling somebody up, or trying to get somebody to buy something they don't want to buy.
Yeah, or greasy.
That's right. Yes. And I think that when we look at sales, I mean, especially most people in the IT world, accounting, even engineering, usually you're at a client and you're really selling concepts. But imagine if I was mowing my grass with a lawnmower and I didn't turn the engine on, and I'm pushing the grass and I'm not getting any results, right? Or I maybe think I'm doing a good job, right? I don't know. And then Kat comes along and says, Andy, if you pull this lever, if you pull this string, right, and you push with that, you're going to get better results. Oh, wow. Right. Now, somebody could say, well, Andy, she just taught you something. It's problem solving. No, she would have to sell me on it, because I would have to then say, what's the benefit of me pulling the string, hearing this noise, running the risk of getting cut, having things fly all over, right? Because that's what I'm going to ask. Why? Before it was nice and quiet, right? And so Kat has to sell me on that idea. Now, it's in my best interest to do it because the grass is actually cut. But if I get hit with a stone, I might say, forget that, right? I'm not interested in getting hit with stones or having stuff fly all over.
That's right. And so I'm just going to stop you right there and just pause for a minute. And in that analogy that you're just bringing up, the thing that what you have to get into, you have to understand that person is feeling or wanting to get to, that goal for that person is to cut grass. Like, that's the benefit that he or she would have at the end of like, that's the whole entire point of him or her doing whatever he or she is doing. This is terrible grammar.
That's right.
Yeah. Right. And so that's the point that you would need to zero in. Like, that's what we mean when we get into your customer's head. Mm-hmm. What is it that they want to accomplish?
Yes, that's right. Yes, exactly. And I think that there are, and I would recommend anybody who wants to say, I need to improve my selling. My recommendation is at your client, and let's say you're even an employee, wherever you're working, look for opportunities to improve something. Look for opportunities where something is missing or somebody, and the best opportunities is when somebody goes, I wish that whatever. I wish this worked differently. I wish that I had this report. I wish I didn't have to do this job or do this particular task. Mm-hmm. That's an opportunity for you to ask, is there something that I can think of or do or know of that can improve this? If that's the case, then take that opportunity and try to build an improvement. And you'll have to sell it, because you'll have to tell somebody, why would you do this?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So I know that you have another engagement at 12:30, which this is the time that we're recording this podcast. I guess the reason why, so I can wrap up and you can sort of drop off. And so you guys, the reason why, before you do that, thank you so much for your time and connecting with me today. It's been a while. Let's do this again.
I know. It's always fun. So it's, we have to, anyways, it's good to catch back up and do this again.
Indeed. So I guess the reason why I was, this is top of mind right now is because next month we are actually putting, like TutorAlly, my training company, is putting on a webinar that in partnership with the Oracle Applications and Technical Users Group. And so the webinar is actually called how to deliver, I don't even know the title of my webinar, how to deliver great ERP training and avoid the traps that most organizations fall into. And so we've done a lot of training in the last number of years, and we've really seen, especially when you implement for Oracle ERP specifically, the last piece is always, to hand over the keys to the people who are actually running the organization, and then you sort of move on to the next implementation project, right? And so, like, as implementation consultants, you don't necessarily see, and very often you don't, honest to God, like, you don't really care as implementation consultants how those people are doing running the system that you put in, because most of, like, you are paid for putting in a great system, making it work for the organization exactly how the organization needs it to work, right? And so that's, I'm not trying to detract from the importance of an implementation. That's super important. But that's sort of where, like, as an implementation consultant, that's sort of where your role ends. And then there's always a gap that we've noticed in all of the implementation, honestly, all of the implementation projects that we've been in over the past 20 plus years, is that we hand over enough training to get them moving, and then we leave, and then we think nothing of it. And then these poor individuals are like, they're great for the first maybe year or two, and then the business evolves, and then changes are made to the system, and then nobody cares about the training. And really, the people who are running it are left to their own devices. Like, literally, I just got an email from some person who is part of the leadership in an organization in Alberta, and she said exactly that to me. Like, we had implemented Oracle a number of years back. Everybody on the project team has left, or the implementation team has left, and now we're stuck with this system. Well, it's not that we're stuck. We have this system, it's great, but we're sort of left to our own devices, because, of course, what happens in an organization, well, you got attrition, you got turnover, people better their careers, right? And so they're not necessarily going to be staying in that one spot forever, right? So you have to expect that people who have people who had been power users in the system are actually going to level up in their careers and move out of their careers. And really, they're more interested in, I mean, it's not to say that these people don't care about the people who are going into their positions, right? And they always want to leave them in a great place, but there's always, the priority for them is not necessarily to transfer all of the knowledge that they have, even though the intent might be there. They're more interested in moving on to their own careers, of course, right? Like fundamentally, as humans, we look out for ourselves. And that's just the way it is. But the thing is that these new folks are, I mean, there's like generally a lack in knowledge, I don't know why I'm doing this. This is the way I was taught. Just do it. They run reports that they have no idea why, because some person somewhere down the line or up the line had to use it for years ago. And then, perhaps they have built several other reports that do the same thing, like all of these kinds of things. And that's what we've noticed, right? And so we've actually taken a very different approach. Well, I would say that's, it's not entirely like super different, but we've identified some huge key success factors in the clients that we've been able to help that really set them in a solid place for training. And so that's sort of what the webinar is about. I'm not going to give away anymore. It's an OATUG partnered webinar. It's free for OATUG members. If you're not a member of OATUG, that's cool too. There's you can still participate in it. I'll include the link at the end or underneath this in the video. So click on the link. You can register for that. If you're not a part of OAUG, and I always say that, that's what it used to be called. OATUG, and want to participate, or you can't make it for the June 24th, which is when the live webinar is. We're actually going to be putting on a replay of it on TutorAlly.com, so stay tuned for that. If you let us know, let me know, I'm going to give you this place for you where you can sort of put your email down, and I can email you when it's going to be happening for TutorAlly. Okay? All right. So hope you're having a fantastic weekend. Today is Friday. By the time this episode airs, it's probably not Friday anymore. So I hope you had a great weekend, and we will talk to you soon.